How do you rebuild your life when everything you thought it would be disappears in an instant? At just 16 years old, today's guest, Tara Shetterly, was paralyzed in a car accident that nearly took her life. While everybody walked away scratch-free, Tara spent months recovering during the midst of the isolation of the COVID-19 pandemic. She faced the daunting reality of learning how to live in a completely different body. Welcome to What It's Really Like. I'm your host, Molly Burke. This is the show where we go beyond assumptions and have honest conversations with people whose lived experiences expand our understanding of the world. Because when we understand each other better, we build compassion, bridge divides, and realize we have more in common than we think. In this conversation, Tara shares what it was really like rebuilding her independence after her accident. From simple things like learning how to dress herself and use the bathroom again, to navigating people who fetishize disability, letting go of shame and embarrassment, and reclaiming confidence in a body that suddenly felt unfamiliar. It's an honest and completely unfiltered conversation about grief, identity, resilience, and what it means to rebuild a life you never expected. Tara is hilariously sassy, unapologetically opinionated, much like myself, and refreshingly real, making this one of those conversations that will probably make you laugh just as much as it makes you think. I know you're going to love it, so let's get into what it's really like. Thank you for trekking all the way out here. I know you had a very long car ride to get to the studio, so thank you for coming in. For those who don't know, who is Tara Shetterly? Wait, do you pronounce it Tara or Tara?
It is Tara.
Okay,
No,
because
right.
I know both.
You got it right.
And they're always spelled the same.
I always say that I think the American pronunciation is Tara, and outside of the US, it's more Tara. But there are some Taras out there. I don't know. I'm biased, I think, but I usually don't correct people.
I feel that the people pleaser in me feels that. Like whenever people call me like Holly or something, I'm just like,
What? That's crazy. Okay. Anyways, yeah. Who am I? God, that's such a vague, open question. I usually answer that question by just saying my professional titles. I've been making full-time content about my life with a disability. I have a spinal cord injury at T11 and T12, so I'm a paraplegic. And I make content about wheelchair life, so accessible travel, adaptive sports, awareness-based for spinal cord injury. I'm 22. I live in Virginia Beach with my boyfriend, and we have a puppy named Ivy.
Oh, a puppy.
And I also am a certified occupational therapy assistant, but I just got that certification this year and I haven't worked, so I know it's really lame.
So yeah, you feel like you can't claim that because
No.
you're like, I have it on paper.
I could be that,
But instead, you're traveling the world, you're making cool content, you're trying adaptive sports, living your best life.
Yes.
And you have that in your
addicting.
back pocket whenever you want to.
Yeah, I think I have a bit of a Great Depression scarcity mindset of I think especially as a disabled person, I just want to have options. And even if I wasn't disabled, I think just my upbringing, I'm you need to have backups. You need to have a plan for your life to sustain yourself. So it makes me feel comfortable, and it's not like OT is something that I would hate to do. It's just like what you said. It's so rewarding to be doing what I'm doing right now.
Tell me about your childhood. You mentioned your upbringing kind of is a part of maybe what formed who you are today. Tell me about your childhood.
God, where do I start? Yeah, I'm a middle child. I have a little sister and then several other older siblings. My parents both had previous relationships, so I have a couple half siblings that are older than me, but there was 4 of us growing up at my house. And my dad was away. He worked overseas. He was in the military, but then he just took contracts overseas. And so it was a pretty full house with my siblings and my mom. But yeah, I don't even know where to start. I have a very non-white picket fence background, I think. And I'm grateful for that in some ways because I do think it shapes who you are. And then to have your disability come on for me at 16, I was like, man, I feel like this definitely isn't the worst thing to happen to me. Which that sounds kind of dark. But like,
Well, you know what? I kind of like it because so often society looks at disability as the worst thing that can happen.
and it's not.
And it's not. And I feel like I've been the recipient of those comments, as every disabled person has. Like, people, like, the amount of people who objectively have had a harder life than me, but
Yeah.
then say to me, but at least I'm not you. Or you make me so grateful. Like, as if looking at me, they're like, oh, none of my hardship is bad because she's blind. And I'm like, no. Actually, like, objectively on paper, you have had it harder. But we are so trained to think of disability as the worst case scenario because that's how, like, the media and society has been trained to see it.
Yeah. Honestly, I think they're coming at it from a place of like genuineness too, which is even more surprising. They're just
And even
so
more sad.
ignorant.
Like,
Yeah.
they genuinely believe that and think that. And
And it's like, okay, how low do you think of yourself that you don't think that you could rebound from something happening to you? Because it could.
it could, and it does, right? Like, you and so many of the people we've had on this podcast are living examples of people who didn't plan to be disabled,
No.
who had a circumstance that was unexpected, that put them in a new life situation. And truly, like, you don't know how strong you are until you have to tap into it and find it. And once you do, like, we as human beings are designed to be so adaptive, are designed to be elastic and bounce back in new and different ways and rebuild. And it's not to say it's easy, particularly at first. It can
Oh,
be
yeah.
very hard.
Yeah.
We'll get into
I think
it.
we all know that.
Yeah, but it's possible. And there's a life after disability that can be, get this, just as beautiful and just as wonderful.
Yeah.
And I think it's what's always surprising to me and frustrating to me about people who say those things to us is it's like they don't realize that essentially what you're saying is like, your life sucks. That's what they're saying to us. Is like, I think your life sucks.
Yeah.
I don't want to be you. Your life is awful. And like, what a weird thing to go up and confidently
say
say
out
to
loud.
somebody.
And say out loud.
It's so bizarre. Before your accident, were you as like adventurous and down to try activities as you are now? Because I look at your social media and you're always trying new adaptive sports and going on these trips and adventures. Was that just always who you are, or is that something that you became following your accident?
The answer is hell no. Can I say that?
Of course. So you say whatever you want to say.
Okay. No. But I also think like when you're 16, which is, like you don't know who you are. Like I did not have that. Like, was I resilient? Yes, because I grew up in a atypical environment. So in that way, I think it helps, like I mentioned earlier, but I did not have the opportunities that I have now as an adult. Like now as an adult, you know yourself, you have exposure to more things, and you also have the freedom to do what you want. But when you're 16 years old, I'm sorry, I don't know, maybe some people's parents are more lenient or you just have like environmentally more opportunities, but I did not. So like I definitely lived a much more boring life. But I also think like when you are in the situation of like able-bodied one day and then the next day, boom, you're paralyzed, you come that close to like death. I had so much more happen to me than just my spinal cord injury too at the time. Like I know people call it a life day every anniversary from their spinal cord injury. And it's like, oh, you're reborn. And I feel that a lot. But I also had like more injuries than just that. I literally almost died. The only reason I'm here is because I was paralyzed literally a block in front of a level 1 trauma hospital. So I think that like reinvigorates you as well and reinvents you into feeling like, well, if life is so close, you never know when your life is going to end. And so then you feel like, oh, I better take it up a notch.
Totally. It becomes this like, well, life is precious. Things can change in an instant. I want to do it all. I want to experience it all. I want to live life to the fullest. And I feel like that was very much my childhood because my family knew I was going to go blind, but they didn't know when.
It felt like a clock.
Yeah, it was like a clock, and it was just like, let's just give her every life experience that she wants to have because we want her to have that lived experience while she can. And every time something was taken from me, every time I lost more vision and I could no longer do something the way I used to, they'd be like, let's find a new thing for her. Let's find an adaptive version of this. And like, I feel so
awesome.
lucky.
That's so awesome to have the support.
Yeah, I feel incredibly lucky. But it definitely, I think because of my disability and because there's so much I know that I'm not supposed to be able to do or that isn't designed for me to be able to do it, I always joke, like, if I find out it exists, I want to try it. Because I don't want to have a life experience untapped.
Yes.
Like, there's so much I am inherently missing out on by not seeing the world that I'm going to experience it in every way that I can without the visual element.
I feel the exact same. I have in my social media bio, it says like life doesn't end just because you're seated. And it's true for me because I know our disabilities are different, but I think like what you were saying earlier where people just think life ends after you have a disability when really I've lived so much more after.
And I also think in part it is a choice, right? Like you or me, we could have chosen to be stuck mentally.
Yeah.
And I think your mental state can stop you so much more than your physical limitations. And I dealt with a lot of depression. I dealt with a lot of anxiety. I was suicidal. And I was really angry. I was not one of those disabled people who, right after becoming disabled, was like, I'm resilient. I'm going to make the best of my new circumstance. Those people do exist, and like, hats off to you for being like so resilient so immediately. I wasn't that. Like, I did have to go through that phase of like, pity, why me? Life's over. I don't want to do this. And then I got to that rock bottom, and I was like, this isn't fun. This isn't fun. Hating my life, being angry, being resentful, being filled with pity and locking myself in my room away from the world isn't fun. And like my choice is ultimately now to just follow through with the evil thoughts I have and end it, or to say, I can build a better life than this. And I wanted to give myself that one more chance to say, like, life can be better than this, but it's not going to be if I remain a victim.
Yeah.
If I remain in this like really negative headspace, I can't change my physical body. I can't take a magic pill that's going to make me see again. But I can choose to not hate this life. I can choose to not hate this circumstance and to actively make the best of it. And I feel like that is so key in recovery, and it comes quicker to some people than others. But of course, before the recovery part, there's the life-altering circumstance. So you mentioned that at 16 is when you acquired your disability. Would you mind sharing any part of what makes you comfortable in how that happened for you?
Yeah. So like October 2020, I was 16. I was just going to a doctor's appointment with my dad. I couldn't even drive back then, so I was just a passenger. And we left, and unfortunately, I just say shit happens. We got into a car accident, and no one else was hurt. Luckily, I was the good thing, but me. So yeah, unfortunately I broke like 9 vertebrae in my spine. It was crazy. I had some in my neck, I had some in my thoracic, which is like your mid back, and my lumbar, but I ended up being instantly paralyzed because the just broken bones sitting on top of your spinal cord is apparently not that good. So that happened, instantly paralyzed. I was like, I think I've been cut in half. Which is so funny, like looking back, because at 16, I was not familiar with spinal cord injury. I did not even consider the possibility that I was paralyzed. I just knew, I was like, well, I can't feel my legs. It hurts really bad, so I guess I've been separated.
It's really interesting because a lot of young people don't have much touch point with disability or awareness of disability.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of young people feel invincible, right? Like a lot of young people feel like that'll never happen to me. So even if you do have a level of awareness of disability, we don't really often think about the fact that majority of disability is acquired through age, accident, or illness. We think of disability as like something my grandma has
Mm-hmm.
or something somebody's born with. We rarely think about the idea that like accidents happen every day
Mm-hmm.
and none of us are immune to that.
Yeah.
But it's really crazy to think that nobody was hurt and yet you almost died.
Yeah. I had like, well, I guess I should mention that it was because I was T-boned on my passenger side. So like, unfortunately, just drew the short end of the stick or whatever that saying is. I was just,
Wrong place, wrong time.
it was. And I think about it too because I remember details of that morning before. I had memory loss after. I was like, I really thought I was dreaming. I just had like a TBI. I was so confused. I had no idea what happened initially. But I remember before at the doctor's appointment, it was crazy. I was at the pediatric cardiologist getting a heart monitor. I had like tachycardia problems, and they were like, "Oh, we think it could be long QT syndrome. We just need to like rule this out." And which is not good. Like like it's definitely not the best situation because I remember like the paramedics and stuff, they were like, "What is this heart monitor?" On your chest. I was like wrapped up already before I even got into the car accident. But that appointment ran way over time. The doctor was running like an hour and a half late. It was ridiculous. And I remember like laughing with my dad, like, "Oh, we should just leave. Like this is crazy. We don't need to be waiting here for this." But we stayed and did the appointment and then left, and immediately, literally as soon as we left the parking lot, I was T-boned. So I think it was a lot of things happened
A lot
to
of
lead
things
up.
like aligned
It did.
exactly in that moment where it's one of those things where you look back and you think if one little thing had been different,
Yeah.
everything would have changed.
And I think like initially you could look at that and be like, I'm just the unluckiest girl in the world and like woe is me and that's so terrible. But I also think like looking back now that there's been time and space put between me and that day in October. Maybe, like I just think maybe I was meant to be like this and this was supposed to be my life.
I think when I look at it, and obviously it's not my place to say this, but the idea that you're the only one who was significantly hurt in the accident, you're just one block from the trauma center, like all of that just feels so, like how on earth did that all align?
Yeah.
That you were meant to be this person. You're meant to be the person doing what you do and being who you are for others. And the
I think
fact that
so.
you've built this career and life for yourself where you are helping so many. I think especially like I see in your comment section, a lot of newly injured people finding so much hope in seeing how full your life has become.
I know. It's crazy for me to even think about too. I have a little bit of imposter syndrome when it relates to my work on social media and the impact that it has on people. But ideally, yeah, I would love to help as many people as I can that have become like newly disabled in showing that like, yeah, life can suck sometimes, but it also can be so freaking awesome. And like we don't have to like sit at home and like be bored and lonely because I felt that way initially. And it kind of led me into social media because I didn't have a lot of disabled people near me. I lived somewhere rural at the time. And I was like, man, I don't have any disabled friends. And I had nothing to do. And so I was like, well, I can do social media and I can connect with people online that are disabled. And my life has certainly evolved from that time, like 4 years ago. It wasn't even that long ago that I felt like my life was empty. And now I'm like, wow, even just this year, we're not even fully through 2026, but I'm like, I'm liking the way that my life is starting to develop. And I'm like, it's not too bad.
I so wish I could tell you the imposter syndrome goes away at some point, but it doesn't. I've been doing this career for 12 years and I still have the biggest imposter syndrome. I literally wrote about it in my memoir Unseen, how much I struggle still with people pleasing and imposter syndrome. And it's such a curse. I think so many of us struggle with it. So unfortunately, you're not alone, but I can't confidently tell you that will ever go away because I am still trying to figure out how to make it go away.
Dang. Well, that's really inspiring. Thank you.
Just out here giving hope to everyone. Going from this person who really knew nothing about disability to then acquiring a disability overnight, and then years later going on to become this person who helps empower other disabled people is quite an arc. At what point following your accident did you really understand what being paralyzed meant for you?
I think back to, I was 6 months post-injury. And I had people in my life at that time this is pre-social media. They were encouraging me to do social media. And I remember being averse to that idea. I was like, I could never do that. I wouldn't do that. I don't think I have a lot of interest in that. But they were like, but your story is so powerful. And at the time I was like, this is corny. I'm not going to do this. And I started thinking about it more. It was kind of wearing at me. I was like, maybe some of them are right. Maybe this could be good for me and other people. And initially, what was my hang up, which you're going to hear this and be like, what were you talking about? At the time, I was like, Mom, if I do social media, I don't even think I can call myself disabled. I'm paralyzed. I know that I'm paralyzed. I'm not delusional. I'm fully aware that this is my reality. I've accepted a long time ago, quite quickly, that this is going to be my life. And walking is not going to happen for me. And so, even knowing that logically, personally, I was like, I had imposter syndrome about even considering myself disabled. It wasn't even just that I didn't like the term disabled and I thought it was dirty. It was literally, I was like, other people, they should probably use the term disabled, but not me. There's more people out there that are more disabled than me. So I can't even make content because I can't even call myself disabled. What do I make content about if I'm not disabled?
I think we see a lot of people in the community feel that way because we have such a narrow view of what disability is and what it means. And the media always portrays it in such an extreme way, right? And so it's we don't see the full spectrum, that there are people who are disabled and you don't even physically see it. There are people who are disabled by pain, who are disabled by their immune system, by things we don't even notice, that aren't tangible, right? And so many people feel like, I can't call myself disabled because I'm not blind, I'm not deaf, I'm not in a wheelchair, and I have all 4 limbs.
And I was in a wheelchair and I was still not disabled enough to claim disabled.
Right. You're like, well, I'm not a quadriplegic or I am not this or that. And
yeah,
we feel like you have to have a certain amount of oppression to be truly disabled or a certain amount of hardship. But that's not the case. Disability is a very wide spectrum. And I think it's important to understand that it is a wide net and to recognize where you fall within that spectrum.
Yeah. And I can't even tell you when that changed for me. I think I guess it was just acceptance. Over time, I was like, you know what? This is ridiculous. I am disabled. And I think I have the right to claim that and therefore make content around my disability. It was a gradual thing, I guess. I don't know.
Well, before making content, there was also probably just a lot of rebuilding and trying to figure out what this new version of your life looked like. What was that journey for you? Because you've gone on to become an OT, or get trained as an OT assistant. So obviously OT was probably very impactful on your life. What was recovery like from the day of the accident to how you got to who you are today?
Yeah. So I stayed at the hospital that I was basically essentially paralyzed at. And I was there for 2 weeks in like medical rehab, or not rehab, like the ICU and the acute care. And at the time, this was 2020. So COVID was definitely a really big factor. It was difficult socially and emotionally, more so because of COVID and the visitor restrictions that were going on. But because I was under 18, they I think it was like a rule. Like I had to have a visitor. Like I could have one. So that was good at least. But moving from just 2 weeks of acute care and then going straight into rehab at the same hospital that was not specialized rehab. It was not meant for someone with a spinal cord injury. I tried, or my mom, I should say, tried to get me to a specialized rehab for neuro recovery, spinal cord injury, and it was denied by insurance, which is crazy. So unfortunately, I was just at that same hospital and I only got 2 weeks of rehab there, which is sinister for the type of injury that this is. Yes, it's lifelong, but there's so many things that you have to learn. You have to learn how to use the bathroom. You have to learn how to transfer to the car. And you know that you're discharged too early as a patient when you have to take an ambulance back home. I wasn't even comfortable enough with my own abilities at that time to transfer into a regular car to go back home, which it was an hour and a half drive from the hospital back home. That's ridiculous. I think the healthcare system is terrible, and we can all agree on that. COVID was also a factor. So my care specifically was just terrible. The ball was dropped on me. But while I was there, I had some good experiences and some good therapy practitioners, specifically my OT, had a good impact on me. And I've talked about it before because I don't think that the medical world, the medical model, people that work in hospitals, they're exposed to disability, but they're not really exposed to disability. And also, I think they're overworked, especially nurses. So a lot of times they're not the most empathetic to their patients that have literally had their lives torn apart in one morning. So when you do find a practitioner or a healthcare worker that shows a genuine care and interest in not just your physical recovery and well-being, but your mental and emotional well-being, that's special. And it leaves a mark because unfortunately, you don't have a lot of those experiences, for me anyway. So my OT OT in general is intimate because they're helping you with your activities of daily living. And that includes being naked. As a 16-year-old, I'm paralyzed. This is an intimate experience. And she was the closest person that I had throughout my short-lived recovery time in the hospital. And she asked me, how are you doing? But for real, not just the social, and how are you today? Please rate your pain 1 through 10. And she left an impact on me. And I always knew that I wanted to work in healthcare pre-injury. I was I'm going to be a nurse. And then after my paralysis, I was well, guys, who's going to hire me? And I'm not saying that there aren't disabled nurses. There are. I'm tapped into the community. I'm fully aware of them because I did research at the time. I was scoping out my options. And I decided after I had this good experience with my OT in the hospital that OT is also healthcare. And I can still do good work in OT. And there's also going to be more accessible options for me as far as settings that you can work in. Versus nursing, I was for my mental health, I don't think I can deal with the ridicule and low expectations from future employers. There was like articles coming out at the time from disabled nurses in wheelchairs. They were like, yeah, I had to send in 200 job applications to get this job, and I only got it because of COVID. And they were understaffed, and they're desperate. And I'm hearing that, and it's not exactly good news for me as someone that grew up and I was like very motivated to work in healthcare and be a nurse. I was like, well, I don't think I could. Power to the people that are in wheelchairs, that are bedside nurses. That's amazing. And I look up to you and I'm impressed. But for me, you know, I just decided it wasn't going to be my path and that OT was probably going to be a little bit better for me. And I agree that it is definitely more accessible and inclusive because the medical world, as much as they want to say you can do anything, as soon as you try to apply for a job in the medical field, suddenly you can't do everything. Suddenly you can do nothing and you're not capable of working that job. So there's a lot of ableism, in my opinion, in the healthcare field.
I think the healthcare field is the most ableist field of all fields. And they're very much so trained to think of curing and treating everything. And we know better than most people that not everything is curable or treatable. And what's so beautiful about your work in the OT field, potentially in the future, is that it's not about curing people. It's about helping people rebuild and adapt to the new reality that you had to go through yourself. Like, you have that exact lived experience of knowing what it's like to have to relearn to do basic tasks like go to the bathroom and get dressed on your own when that was a skill you did every day for years. And now you have to do it in a whole new way.
Yeah.
Unexpectedly. Like, you have that lived experience. And I think that lived experience will lend itself so beautifully to the way that if you choose to go back and do that, the way that you will be able to interact and treat your own patients.
Yeah. So anytime you're like getting a degree in healthcare, you still have to do clinicals. So it's not that I haven't been exposed to working with patients. It's just that I haven't done it to make money after being graduated. So I had some experiences with working with patients in a couple different settings while I was completing my degree for occupational therapy assistants. And I had obviously I wasn't working with like the spinal cord injury crowd as much as I think that would have been impactful. You just don't have control over where you end up for your clinicals. And I was totally okay with doing hand therapy as a student. I don't want to, it's okay. We don't have to go that far. But I did have some experiences with neuro patients that had similar disabilities. And I remember there was one that left a mark on me because he was crying and he was really upset about how he wasn't making progress like he wanted to. And he had the expectation that he was going to get better. And he wasn't at that time anyway. And he was upset and talking about, like, how is this my life? Is this worth continuing? And it was a dark conversation. And he needed someone there to be like, this was my lived experience. I was in a very similar place to you. And I can relate. But here I am a couple years after, in the future, basically. And I'm here on the other side. Instead of just being a patient, you can be a practitioner. And you can also have a wonderful life. You can do like all these different adaptive sports and have disabled friends. And like, you're going to kick butt. Like, I promise, dude, stick it out. It's okay. Even if you're not making progress right now. And just to have that one conversation with someone that I felt like could truly relate to me was very worth the schooling.
And I'm sure that conversation coming from you meant so much more and resonated so much more than if it was coming from a non-disabled OT.
Yes, because your patient is going to trust you more because they can see that you've been through something.
You're not bullshitting them. Yeah. You're like, no, I literally get it. Yes. I have actually also been there. I've done this exact same routine. And here I am today to say I'm happy and I'm thriving and I'm succeeding. And, you know, that I feel like is truly all you need when you're in that dark place. Like, I know that that's what I had needed.
Yeah.
And I didn't have it.
No.
And that's why I became what I became. That's why I do the work I do, is because everywhere I was looking, nobody was telling me or showing me that, like, you can be blind and do all the things you want to do and live the best life. And it's not to say those people don't exist. Obviously, I know they do. Just like you now know disabled nurses exist.
Yeah.
But when that's not what you have access to in the time, when that's not what is around you immediately, because I personally grew up deeply entrenched in medical model and cure culture.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up the face of a charity trying to cure my disease. So my network of blindness was people who wanted to be cured.
Right.
So even when I was looking to adults, to people who have been through it before me, what I was seeing is people still fighting to be cured.
Right.
I wasn't seeing people who'd learned to accept, people
Yes.
who had learned to thrive,
Yes.
people who had learned to say, this is my life and I'm going to live a kick-ass life as a blind person. I was seeing people going, this sucks. I hate it. I want to see, let's put all of our effort not into accepting and thriving, but into fundraising and curing. And I looked at that and I was like, oh, is this the only version of blindness that exists? Like,
Yeah.
is this the only way to live, is to continue to hate my circumstance and want to change? But when the change is entirely out of your control, that is the most powerless feeling. And
Yeah.
like, how can you feel empowered when you are literally powerless to change this one thing that you're being told you have to change to be happy, right? Like, it's such a vicious cycle. And to be able to be a part of breaking that cycle for somebody the way you did for him is so powerful.
I hope so. I still have imposter syndrome. I'm still very much like deflective of the potential of true impact and positive outcomes. But ideally, I would love to be that person in my future professional life in healthcare and online.
I was going to say, you're realistically, like, you are having that same type of impact on people through your online content. It's the same mission. It's just being executed in a slightly different way.
Right.
I think I want to go back to what you mentioned around him kind of being in a negative place because he thought he was going to heal or get better and he didn't. And I'm sure you likely also at some point had that thought. Because many people do. I think many people think doctors can heal and treat anything, especially when we're young and naive and don't have much connection or understanding and awareness of disability. As
Yeah.
you said, you didn't. And your initial thought is, I've been cut in half, right? Like, you're not thinking I'm paralyzed. You're thinking,
no.
I've been cut in half. And
Yep.
at a certain point, you're in the hospital and a doctor or family member, nurse, somebody comes in and tells you what the reality is.
Yeah.
What the diagnosis is.
I remember that vividly, as I'm sure most people do. After the surgeries, right? Because they try to like fix you first with the surgery. And they're like, well, maybe you'll get more function after the surgery. And we take out the broken bits. And unfortunately, they came in and they're like, sorry, your shit's still fucked. And I remember that conversation with the neurosurgeon. Oh my God, this is a funny story too. Funny in a dark way. But the neurosurgeon that did my surgery, they had to fly him in, first of all. He wasn't even in Virginia. I don't remember the exact reasoning. Obviously, like, my family was so upset, and they're the ones relaying this information to me after I'm, like, well enough to understand, because I had a TBI at the time.
And I'm sure you're on like all sorts of pain meds. Yeah.
So they were like, yeah, well, we have to wait, and the neurosurgeon is going to come in 2 days. This is 2 days after my paralysis, which is not good for spinal cord injury outlook. You should ideally get the surgery as soon as possible, but they had to fly him in, and I think I was like still medically unstable to do that surgery because of my aorta injury and surgery. So there's a lot of factors going on, but after the neurosurgeon came in after the surgery and did the neuro exam to see if I was all better, he was like, when I opened you up, this was the worst presentation that I've ever seen, which is like not very.
It's not what you want to hear.
You never want to hear a doctor say, this is the worst case I've ever seen in my career. And he was old. Oh my
You're like,
God.
you've had a long career.
This is crazy.
This is not a young, fresh doctor. This is a seasoned professional who flew in.
He's in his 60s, and he's like, this is the worst I've ever seen. And so he said that, and I was like, okay. And then he was like, yeah, so he explained it to me, and he was like, you have an Asia A complete spinal cord injury at T11 and T12. And essentially, that means that you're the most paralyzed. Like, you can't get less paralyzed than that. You're at the top of the paralysis pyramid. And that also means that there's a very, quote, very, 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 very unlikely chance that you'll ever walk again. They don't say never walk again, because I don't think everyone knows that's not factual. I mean, I guess there's a chance. But hearing that stung a lot. But like I said, I was like, oh, I'm going to work in healthcare. I'll be a nurse. So I still trust in, like, if you're telling me this is very, 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 very unlikely, and you're telling me this multiple times, every morning you round on me, you're like, yeah, you're not going to walk again. I'm so sorry. And then I'm literally just laying there in the bed, silently crying. I don't think I ever really had, like, any direct kind of outbursts, like, yes, I will. You can't tell me what I can't do. And I know other people have that experience, and they're, like, fighting back on it, and they're like, I hate my wheelchair. I'm not going to use this thing. I never felt negatively about a wheelchair. I got in a wheelchair out of bed for the first time on my 17th birthday. This was like, so if I was paralyzed October 14th, this was on October 22nd. So it wasn't even like, it hadn't been that long, but I was so eager to get out of the bed and literally see anything other than the little hospital walls. So it was a very positive experience for me. And it was still just some, like, nasty, crusty hospital wheelchair. But I had the perspective of, like, this, I just always had that perspective of this wheelchair is the thing that's going to get me out of bed. And even though it was horrible for me at the time, like, I was so dizzy, I was like, I'm going to pass out, I'm going to throw up, this is terrible. Because I was like, I don't know, I guess you have, like, low blood pressure or something. If you've been, like, in bed for that long, getting up is like, oh, snap.
I'm sure it was very shocking for your body.
Yeah, your body's like, what do we do? Let's just pass out. So it was grueling, but it was still the best day I had. In the 4 weeks that I was inpatient at the hospital, I was like, wow, this is the best birthday present I could have. So I don't know, I don't relate so much to other people that have this, like, long phase of being like, you know, I'm going to prove the doctors wrong, and this wheelchair sucks, and I'm going to get back to walking. Did I have some hope for return? Yes. But the hope was still logical. Like, I was like, you know, I'll be able to use the bathroom again. I'll be able to be independent again soon. But my goals were never, can you please write a goal for walking again in 4 weeks? I knew that wasn't realistic.
After becoming paralyzed, what was the hardest skill to relearn?
I was frustrated, I will say. I was very frustrated learning everything, basically. Probably just getting dressed. Like, lower body dressing for me, I was, like, so mad at my OT, the one that I was just praising earlier for being a big reason why I became an occupational therapy assistant. I was such a bitch. I was just, you know, I'm just not the type of person that does things that are hard and that I'm not good at initially, and I wasn't good at this initially. And it was really freaking hard to don pants on a toilet, because if you're, like, in a wheelchair and you're a girl, okay, paralyzed men have privilege when it comes to using the bathroom. They don't even need to use the freaking toilet. They can just cath from their chair. Can you believe that?
We can just say men have privilege. It doesn't even need to be, just men have privilege,
They
including
do.
the ones in wheelchairs.
Come on. So they don't, whatever. So as a paralyzed woman.
That's honestly fire, though. That they can just, like, cath in their
God.
chairs. It's like how men, like, you
Come
go
on.
camping and a guy can just stand and pee in the
Everything's
forest.
easier for them.
And then
It's
I'm,
BS.
like, the pants are on my ankles and I'm, like doing, like, a weird starfish pose to try to pee, not on my feet. Like, it's so annoying. Men just have it easier with the peeing. Whether you're standing or sitting, they've got it easier.
Yeah, people need to talk about that.
Mm-hmm. This is our next platform. This is our next mission.
Jeez.
Equality in peeing.
Literally. So, but the actual process of, like, cathing, like, so obviously being paralyzed doesn't just mean you can't walk. And I would hope that everyone knows that, but
I don't think they do. Can you tell? A lot of people think paralyzed just means you're sitting and you can't feel, but there's so much that goes into being paralyzed. Can you talk us through that?
I'll give you guys the breakdown. I'll give you guys the down low. I'm your inside girl. Yeah. I initially, like, I couldn't feel anything, which is why I was labeled Asia A complete, meaning from my like waist basically down, I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't move anything. So yes, that means no walking, but it also means that you have neurogenic bladder and bowel, which means, like, you can't use the bathroom the same way for number 1 or 2. So it's a process of your body, like, learning how to adapt to that. But, like, oh my gosh, there's so many things that go into just not having sensation.
I've heard, like, sweating can be an issue for some people, like body temperature regulation.
I've had some return in sensation since then, which is, like, wild considering my neurosurgeon was like, this is the worst case I've ever seen. But I have some sensation now below my level of injury. But, for example, I still gave myself a really bad burn on my thigh because I can't feel. So I put down a hot plate. I thought I felt the underneath of it. I thought it felt okay, and it in fact was not okay. And I picked the plate up, and you can't even tell that you've burned yourself. Like, I looked at my thigh and I was like, this is so weird. It looks like dog hair. And I went to brush it, like, brush the hair off. It was my skin.
Oh my God.
Like, and I was like, oh, stop. So there's so many things that can happen to you.
Like getting infections and not even being aware.
That's happened to me too. I've had so many things happen to me solely because I have reduced sensation. It's not even just that, you can't walk.
But on the plus side, you could get tattoos.
I could. I don't have any tattoos below my level of injury. I know for other people, they have, your presentation depends a lot on spinal cord injury. A lot of people have spasms, so their legs move involuntarily. And so tattoos probably wouldn't be good for them, even though they can't feel it. If your leg is moving involuntarily and you're trying to get a tattoo, I don't think your line work is going to look very good.
Yeah, probably not great. But if not, life hack.
Right.
Like, for me, just get all your tattoos below injury.
For me, it would be a life hack because I don't have spasms. But yeah, I don't know, there's so many, like, earlier this year, I got a pressure injury from skiing. And why is that? Well, it's partially because you can't feel that there's not enough cushion in the bucket that you're sitting in. And you're locked into place and you can't do a pressure relief. So your circulation is also poorer than the typical person. And like you said, a lot of people can't sweat below their level of injury, or they have significantly reduced sweating, which I experience, and it makes summers not that enjoyable if you're trying to do, like, activities of any kind.
Well, because most people, right, like a lot of us who do get sweaty, wish we didn't. But sweating is really important. Sweating is your body's way of regulating your temperature and not internally overheating. So as much as you might not want to sweat, actually, you do want to sweat. Because for your own health and safety, sweating is important. So, PSA, next time you're really sweaty and you're like, I hate that I sweat so much.
Be grateful.
Be grateful. Actually check yourself and be like, I'm so lucky that my body sweats and I can relieve the heat internally.
Yeah. I was mountain biking earlier this summer, and like, we were supposed to be downhill mountain biking, which is, like, wooded, right, and covered, and it's not a lot of physical work because you're just going down. But before we could do that, I had to practice. I'd never been downhill biking before, so I had to practice on the little practice berms they had carved out in the dirt, and that was not on the mountain. It was beside the mountain, so there was no trees, no shade. It was just the sun beating down on us, and personally, I was with other paralyzed people, but it just hits me so much harder. I also have a tachycardia problem. And so I literally thought I was going to pass out. And I was like it was so ridiculous. I was leaning against a wall, like in the bike. I wasn't even in my wheelchair, I was in the bike, leaning against a wall for like 20 minutes. I was like, I could barely talk. I was like, I can't do this right now. I felt so ill. But I guess the one positive is that my feet never stink anymore.
We have to look on the bright side, and that is a
Exactly.
bright side.
You know?
And your shoes stay pristine.
They don't. That's
Really?
a myth.
Tell me.
Yeah, that's a myth. People seem to think that for some reason. But I'm here to tell you that unfortunately, your feet are still touching the ground. And during transfers, if I'm going from my wheelchair to the car, for example, outside, sometimes I drag my feet on accident. And so my shoes are still like the toe box, the front gets like worn down because I'm dragging my toes. Like, so no, I'm sorry. And people use that as like a reasoning. They're like, you're faking it. I know you are. You're faking it because why are your shoes that dirty? And I'm like, sir, my feet are still on the ground, just like yours.
People love to find the most ludicrous reasons to accuse disabled people on the internet of faking. Newsflash, real disabled people do just exist.
I'm sorry to say.
We just exist. It's so, sadly, I feel like I almost don't know a single disabled content creator who has not been accused of faking at least once. But most of us are getting it like regularly,
daily,
all the damn time. So
for different reasons too. There's always a justification. Well, sometimes there's a justification. Sometimes they're just like, your vibe isn't right.
But the craziest part is like it's all based in misconceptions and stereotypes. And it's like, no, that's why I'm making this content, to teach you that we're not all the misconceptions and stereotypes. And then you're using those things to somehow, quote, prove that I'm not disabled. So you are not alone in this you're not disabled thing on the internet. But I'm curious if you have also gotten the other end of the spectrum, the devotees, the fetishists.
Oh, don't even bring this up, Molly. I'm traumatized. Okay. Oh, where do I start with the devotees? Oh my God. So I think what's also sick. Okay, should we tell the people what devotees are?
Yeah, you get into it. Tell us about the devotees.
I don't know if you experienced this, Molly. I'm so tapped into the spinal cord injury community, and I know we are afflicted by devotees a lot. But just
I feel like it's like wheelchair users, amputees, and little people.
Physical
are
disabilities.
yes, are like people really go for those. I have had like very few. Like it's not, because it's not very common with blindness because they like the physical differences.
Yeah.
For me, the creepiest comment I received was like on a dating app when I told a guy that I was blind because I didn't put it in my bio.
It's always
I would,
a dating app.
And always. And then his response to me saying that was, I hope you're not lying. And usually it would be people like being like the opposite. Like, that's a joke, right? Like, they'd be not into it. But he was like, I hope you're not lying. And I was like, that's weird. And I was like, no, I'm blind.
Freak.
And then he says, good, because I like you better blind.
Okay. It's giving Predator.
Right? And this is why I would never put it in my bio, because it's giving Predator.
Literally.
And the worst thing to me is he was an EMT. And I was like, I hate that so much.
No, wait. Actually, so first of all, let's just explain. Devotees are a community of people that are devoted to mostly physically disabled people for some really effed up reasons. A lot of times, at least for spinal cord injury, it's like, God, they're physically attracted oftentimes to disability aids. It could be anything from like compression socks to diapers and like crutches and casts. I'm trying to think of like other things.
Well, and a lot of it is like they enjoy say, seeing a wheelchair user transfer.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
like,
or calf.
or
I
yes,
think that's a thing.
Or like just like they would enjoy seeing you like shave your legs, like just like the weirdest things. That's very rooted in like I feel like this weird oh my, okay, the devotees will justify it by being like, everybody has preferences. And it's like, no, shut up, ew.
Something's off with this.
They're like, well, some people like Asian girls and some people like tall guys and
some people
the
like
same.
girls that can't run away.
You said the quiet part out loud. Yes, like that.
Mic drop.
No, truly. It's like so much of it is rooted, and this is the thing, particularly as disabled women, but just as disabled people, period, when dating. Whether we like to see it and think about it or not, we must acknowledge for ourselves that there are predators out there who specifically like the fact that we are vulnerable in certain
Helpless.
ways.
Yeah.
They enjoy the fact that, say, if you were sitting in this chair and your wheelchair's over there, that they could remove that from this room and you would be stuck.
Mhm.
They like that.
Yeah.
They like the idea that they would have that control over you. For blind people, they like the fact that you could tell me anything and I don't know if it's true or not. That you could tell me my makeup's perfect and I'm actually a hot mess, and that you like having that control over me.
Yes.
You like the idea that you could move furniture and I would walk into it. You like the idea that you are my ride to get places. They love the idea that they have some element of control or power over us as disabled people. It's sick and it's twisted, and that is certainly an element for a lot of devotees.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for all of them.
There's exceptions. I agree. There's not like all people that are devotees are like closeted predators. But I do
There is
think
that element for many.
There is. And oh my God, I have the worst story. I've never said this before.
Tell
or
me.
told someone. This is the juicy dark tea. Why is everything so okay? I say it in a comical way, and I do view that comically, but
it's coping. We're coping
it
with
is
humor.
Coping. It is coping. So okay, I think this is even more sick. So I was paralyzed at 16, right? I was not an adult. Let's just start there.
I don't like where this is going.
Let's just start there. And so I told you, this is like pre-social media. I still didn't have disabled friends. I was lonely. I was bored. I didn't have anything to do. I was really looking for connection with people that could relate to my experience. And especially being young and disabled, that's even more rare to find.
And it's very isolating.
It is. And unfortunately, like, being at my age, like, I didn't have good support system, like, with friends. Unfortunately, like, there wasn't, like, a malicious intent. Like, all my friends disappeared right after I became disabled. They did. But, like, I'm not saying it was, like, I'm not saying they all grouped together and were like, so we don't think we want to be friends with Tara anymore because she's in a wheelchair. It just kind of happened, and I don't fault them for that, but I do think it led to, like, me just being lonely, and I wanted to talk to someone. And I think initially I made this connection with this person online, and this sounds so crazy. He was like, I think, so I was 17 at the time, and he was like, said he was like 20 or something like that, but close to my age. And he didn't live near me, which is great, looking back. So I talked to him as a friend for a while. He said that he was like newly injured like me, and we just talked about like spinal cord injury stuff. And I wish I could remember the exact details, but I trusted this person because he would call me. And so I was like, oh, this is a real guy. And it's not some like international person with this like foreign accent. And he'd send me photos of him in his wheelchair, custom wheelchair. Custom wheelchairs are hard to get.
And they're expensive.
Yeah, like if someone's in a custom wheelchair and it like fits them, you're also like, oh, you're more trusting. Like you believe this person.
You did not get that on Facebook Marketplace.
Right. Like I did not. Well,
Oh, no. This is exactly where I was afraid it was going.
So I knew this person for a couple months. I didn't have other disabled friends. And it turns out I can't even remember how I found this out initially. Someone told me. Someone said something to me, and I just don't know how that initiated. But regardless, it turns out that person that I was chatting with confiding with about being newly injured and everything that comes with that, the difficulties of that, and like seeking peer support.
Yes, community.
Yes, was able-bodied.
Yep, that's exactly where I
And
feared
he
this was going.
Was just a devotee that does this, and I wasn't the first person. This is like a known person that does this to like especially newly injured people that aren't aware of what devotees are. And why would someone that's newly injured be thinking that this person
People fetishize disability and is lying.
yes, is just like low-key feeding off of you because they're attracted to disability. And it's not like, in the sense of like, okay, imagine like the stories you hear of like teenage girls, right? And they're always being solicited for like nude pictures and stuff because people are into that. It's not even so direct like that. It's literally talking to you about your disability and having you confide in them, and they seemingly confide in you, but it's literally a lie.
It's so violating.
It's literally a lie. Yeah, it's like, but the ultimate betrayal. Like, this is crazy. We talked, like, we were friends on the phone for months. And then to find out, this guy actually bought the wheelchair used so that it could be used as a prop to lure people into trusting him. And I'm like, oh my God, I hope there's no newly disabled people near you in your area.
And this is why we get accused of faking
are
it.
so sick.
Because people like him exist.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
ew. It's so violating. I'm so sorry you went through that,
And then he admitted
especially
it.
newly disabled.
And then, yes, he admitted it. And it's not something that I just suspect. Like, are you sure he really wasn't? No, he really wasn't disabled because I confronted him about it and he admitted it and told me that he's a devotee and was like, okay, I mean, if I was him, I'd lie, but he admitted it. I'm like,
No. And the reason I knew where you were going with this is because this is a real actual problem. Like, this is a actual thing in the community where people do pretend to be disabled to connect with disabled people because they have the fetish.
Mm-hmm.
And and this is why I think disabled people aren't receptive to this fetish because it's not like it is.
Yeah.
They try to defend themselves, and I'm sure we're gonna find some in the comment section.
Bad seeds. There's too many bad seeds. I'm sorry.
Right. They're going to try to defend themselves in the comment section. I'm certain.
We
but
can't get over it.
No.
Were soliciting me at 17 years. I wasn't even an adult, bro. You're so sick.
There's no defending
Get
that.
help.
And it's like the difference of having because they call it a preference for disabled people. The difference between having a preference that your partner is tall and having a preference that your partner is disabled, we can clearly see that those are very different preferences rooted in different ideology. Like, there's a different purpose that you're connecting with it. I don't know how to how I'm saying it makes sense, but like, I don't know. It's so bizarre and a very real thing.
I have to agree.
I am surprised that you didn't say that the hardest thing to learn was cathing. Because to me, when I think about it, I'm like, but maybe it's because I can't see.
Girl, let's go to the bathroom right now. I'll show you really quick.
Being blind and trying to cath myself seems like...
Girl, I'm blind when I cath myself. I'm not looking.
Really?
Really?
You don't hold a mirror? I feel like I would want to line it up.
So initially, I mean, it's muscle memory. Like, initially, I had a really good nurse that came into the hospital. Well, she was just the charge nurse on floor that day. And you would think it would be like a doctor or something, like showing you how to cath. It was just my nurse. My nurse came in at the time, and she was like, "This is what we're gonna do today. We're gonna learn to cath." And I got it my first time. Like, cathing as a woman is harder. Like I mentioned earlier, you have to like transfer to a toilet, and men don't have to do that. But it's also harder anatomically. Men have a very clear urethra. And
Straight up and down.
unfortunately, for women, that's not the case, and it's trickier. Even for nurses, like that can visualize the anatomy, would miss all the time, and then I have to leave the room and come back and try again. So for me, I knew that going into it, and she was like, "This is what we're doing today." But she was really comforting. I don't know what it was about her personality. She made it something that didn't feel like embarrassing for one, like as a teenager, you know. This is like
It's so intimate.
I got very used to being like exposed in multiple ways, and I don't mean like just physically. But that experience was good because I think it was better because I got it my first time, and I was like, "Oh, okay."
Built a bit of confidence.
It gave positive reinforcement for me to keep learning. But initially, yes, using a mirror is the way to go. But I don't whip out I don't carry
You don't carry a
mirror.
compact with you?
What? No, that would take way too long. That's ridiculous. Eventually, honestly, it doesn't even take that long. Like 6 months, that sounds like a long time. But in reality, like it took a while to like get the muscle memory of like where to go. But literally, I just said, "Do you want to go to the bathroom right now?" Because this is kind of crazy. But I have had my sister cath herself. My sister's able-bodied. She's 11 months older. One time she came over to the house and she's like, "I have to go to the bathroom so bad." And I was like, "You want me to come with you? I can show you." And I literally just took out my catheter, and one of my catheters, and it's clean, right? Like it's not like they're being reused.
They're single use.
Single use. And I take the catheter out, and I'm like, I wasn't even in the room with her. I was screaming at her through the door. She was like, "Hurry! I need to go right now." And literally, it was easy enough for her. She did not use a mirror. I literally just directed her how to do it. It is so simple.
Wouldn't it be like physically uncomfortable? Like
Well,
for her because she can feel it.
no, she was like, it didn't feel like anything.
Whoa.
The catheters aren't that big. They're not huge. And she was like, yeah, she has full sensation, right? She's A-white. She doesn't need to be doing this. This is for fun. And she was like, no, it didn't hurt at all. She was like, I think she said it was like a little odd, but it didn't really feel like anything. And not only have I had her successfully cath herself, but I won't even say who it is, but we had someone else teach their sister how to cath just for fun.
This is like your party trick. Everyone has a party
it
trick. You're like,
is.
my party trick is I can teach you how to cath yourself.
I can teach you, I promise. Don't fear. I can help.
You learn something new every day.
Yeah.
This is why we have these conversations. This is boots on the ground journalism, everybody. We're getting the real intel here. So
You're welcome. I only had to get paralyzed to do it, but I'll take that.
We talked about the Devotees.
Yeah.
Which is, unfortunately, a lesson many newly disabled people have to learn eventually. Particularly
Women.
something to be aware of. Yes, particularly women. And it's something we need to be aware of going into dating. But you have a partner today that you live with.
Yeah.
Tell me about your experience getting into the dating world as a disabled woman.
So I actually haven't. I've been with him since pre-injury.
Wow. I love that.
So, God, I feel for the women that have to enter the dating scene after being paralyzed. And I have no advice because I'm like, well, I was just lucky enough to like keep coasting in my relationship. We were together 6 months before I was paralyzed. So it's not like we were like life partners before.
That's very
anything.
fresh. And
But
you were
yeah.
also very young.
Yeah.
After becoming paralyzed, did you ever have a moment where you're like, he's going to leave me?
No, interestingly, no, but he told me he probably should have kept this to himself. Because sometimes I still think about it, but especially back then, I was so shocked. He was like, told me one day he came home and he was like, yeah, one of my friends or his coworker or something, was like, egging him on to leave me because they were like, well, it's just not going to work out for you anymore. Like, basically, she's damaged. Like, don't bother. Just break up with her. You should just get a new one.
Damaged goods.
Replace.
She's at the thrift store now. Get one brand new with tags.
Get your refund because that one you don't want. And he told me that, and I was like, what the? He should go to hell because he doesn't even have, I don't even think he had a girlfriend. Excuse me. I don't think so. So no, I never felt that way. I don't know. Luckily, I guess.
Isn't it frustrating to think, though, that there's people like his friend who think that way? Because
keep it to yourself.
Keep it to yourself. I actually, funny enough, I don't think I've ever said this. My first boyfriend, it was like the year after I went blind.
Okay.
So I was like newly blind. Our first date was like right around my 15th birthday. I lost my vision at 14.
Mm-hmm.
So it was still very new to me. And it was my first boyfriend. Like, I didn't date pre-vision loss. And we went on to date for like 9 months. He was my first love. I'm engaged now, so I know what love feels like. And I can tell you it was love. I loved him. And even though we were young, and it was like really magical. And then out of nowhere, he breaks up with me. Because why? Because his friends convinced him to.
Oh my
He went
God.
to a new school. And all of his new friends at his new school convinced him to leave me. They never even met me. And they convinced him to leave me. But I got my vengeance because years later, he tried to beg me to get back together with him.
Wow.
And
what'd you say?
I said
I'm
no.
engaged.
I said no. So, you know what? Don't listen to your friends, folks. Listen to your heart.
Mentality is so pitiful.
Yes.
Like, boy, get over it.
So
Seriously. And mind
crazy.
your business.
Mind your business. Mind your damn business. So I'm sorry that happened to you. But it's amazing that you have been, I mean, most people don't stay with their high school sweetheart. Me being an example. So the fact that you are still with your high school sweetheart and as a couple, you worked through like a very life-altering circumstance.
Yeah.
And that he was able to support you through that. Like, that's what love should be, right? Like, unconditional love is in sickness and in health. Yeah. And I remember seeing this woman talk about her wedding vows on social media. And she specifically talked about how they chose to remove the in sickness and in health line.
Why?
Because she was like, well, no. Like, if like one of us became disabled, like, we're not
out of there.
Out of there.
Jeez,
and
Louise,
I was like, maybe marriage isn't for you. Like,
I fear you just aren't looking for a long-term commitment there because in a long-term commitment, something's bound to come up, right? I mean, come on.
There's seasons in life, right? Like, there's good seasons and there's tough seasons. And I'm fortunate enough that, like, my parents have been married for, I want to say 36, 37 years now. And I saw rough patches. Like, it's not like my parents' life was hunky-dory. I mean, look, they had to deal with me going through my vision loss. Like, that's very traumatic on the whole family. And my dad lost his job at the same time. Love that for us. It was the 2008 economic crash when I went blind. And so he was out of work for 18 months.
See,
we love when just the life piles on.
Right.
So we went through so much as a family, and you know, we had like a single working household, so it was very tough on us, and we had to sell our family home, and it was just really rough times. And like, that was not a great period for my parents. And my mom always tells me, she's like, I'm so glad we worked through it because guess what? Like, life is better now than it was before. Yeah. Like, we've had so many beautiful seasons since the tough season. But if we'd given up in the tough season, we would have never gotten to enjoy these moments today. And like, I feel so lucky that that's the example of love and marriage that I had. And I'm very fortunate that my fiance had the same. His parents were high school sweethearts. They started dating around the same time as you did. And, you know, they've been married around the same amount of time as my parents. And he's seen the same. And like, I feel like really blessed that me and my partner both had those examples going into our own marriage, because I know and you know, shit happens. That you don't plan for.
Can we name that? Can the podcast?
New podcast name.
Yeah.
Shit happens with Molly Burke.
Yes. No, I didn't have those positive like role model, I guess. experiences with my family or parents in general. And so I think like it was unprecedented I think being in a like normal relationship is unprecedented for me. But like also just then becoming paralyzed, it was a question of like, well, I don't know what my life is going to look like. So how do I envision what my life looks like with someone else? Which I think gradually I just got over. And I don't even have anything inspirational to say about that. I'm just like, initially stuff's hard and you're like in uncharted waters. And then you kind of realize as time goes on, like, you know, it's not as bad as you think.
Well, I think the message in that is like time does heal.
It does. Yeah.
Sometimes you do just need to give yourself time. And as somebody who wanted to end her life, I'm so glad I gave myself time because I'm
Me
so
too.
happy.
You mentioned like having like difficulties mentally. I had that before I was paralyzed. And then after I was paralyzed, I didn't. Like, I think like I had already found my limits. I was like, oh, been there, done that. I'm not going to get that way again. I just decided it's not going to work for me. But yeah, now looking back, I'm like, dang, I was like really depressed as an able-bodied teenager. And then I got disabled and you'd think like, oh, it's going to be worse for you. But
We're going to level up. Things are going down.
But no, yeah, you're right. Like you look back and with like a clearness that time brings you and you're like, oh, you know what? My life is significantly better now than it was when I was like mopey and like not wanting to be here.
And it's really hard for people to, I think, grasp that or conceptualize that life can actually be better after disability than it was before.
Absolutely.
Because all we see is the doom, the gloom, the negative, the hardship. And that does exist. Like, I don't want to sweep that under the rug and pretend like life is hunky-dory.
Yeah.
It's not. I can acknowledge that my life is harder because I am blind than it would be if I could see. Like, that's just factual. The world isn't accessible. That's objectively true. I'm not living in delusion. But life can be hard and amazing at the same time. Like, those aren't mutually exclusive. And so much of the joy and the beauty I have in my life is also a direct result of my blindness. So while yes, the hardship I face is a direct result of my blindness, the beauty I experience is as well. And I can hold both of those at the same time.
You can't separate those experiences away from your disability anyway, because like, at least for us, like, it literally affects every single aspect of our life.
24/7, everything I do is different because I'm blind.
Absolutely. And I feel that too. I mean, I don't go anywhere without my wheelchair. My wheelchair's just out of frame. Like, it's just right there. So we both approach life from a disability lens first.
Yes.
So it colors everything. And so you can't really separate your disability from your life experiences or perspective because it's one of the same.
It's a part of your full self.
Yeah.
And it's not all of me, but yeah, it's a massive freaking part of me. And it's a part that impacts every other part.
Yeah.
So I don't separate them. It is who I am. It's a big part of who I am, and it's a part that I'm proud of.
Yeah.
Because I had to go through a lot of shit to get to the part of loving myself, and I'm really proud of that.
Yeah, and people, God, some people online are so pissed when they hear that. They're like, oh, God, you just make your whole life about your disability, and everything you post about is about you in a wheelchair. Well, I hate to break this to you, but like, yeah, I do, because I'm proud of that, and like, I don't see a reason why I should try to separate my disability from my content or my life for you because it makes you more comfortable. And when it literally does affect my entire life, and I'm proud of that, like, that's fine.
And what's interesting is sometimes, I don't know if you've had this, but like sometimes it's not even the non-disabled people. It's other disabled people.
Sometimes, yeah.
And I'm like, you don't have to. If you don't feel like it's like needs to be a big part of your personality, hats off to you. Great. Yeah. This is my life. This is my page. my prerogative. Like, if I feel that this my blindness has been the most impactful thing that's happened to me, which I do feel that, then I'm allowed to have that be what I do. And like, not all disabled people need to be advocates. We've chosen to be.
Yeah.
That's the path we chose. That's a part of what's helped us heal. And if you know what, if me becoming an advocate is because I needed to give my pain purpose, so be it. If all it was a coping mechanism, I found a goddamn good coping mechanism to get me to where I am today.
You know, I almost disagree. Partially, I understand the sentiment. But the other part of me is like, you know what? I actually do believe, unless you're bedbound and you've resigned life, you do have to be an advocate for yourself. Because there's so many situations in your daily life that you're going to encounter and be like, damn, this isn't right. And if I don't say something, then I'm personally directly going to be affected because I literally won't be able to go, or I won't be able to do that. Like, and I can point to so many examples of that. The oh my gosh, I don't even know if I can. The cruise that we met on, there was a show there one night, and we got there. It was like multiple of us in wheelchairs, and we got there, and when you're in a crowd of able-bodied people, you literally won't be able to see anything if they're all standing in front of you. There's no point in going to the show because you literally can't see anything. So we went up to the front.
Girl, trust me, I get it. I also can't see anything when I go to the show, but for very different reasons.
Well, our reason can be fixed by us just going to the front.
Yes.
And able-bodied people can see over us quite easily because we're like 3 feet tall in our wheelchairs. So that's what we did, and didn't think anything of it until someone was like, you know, on the staff or whatever was like, it's a fire hazard for you to be here.
Shut up. Never
like,
call
"You
disabled
can't."
people fucking fire hazard.
Bro, it's happening to me too much. And they were adamant. They were like, you can't be here. And I was like, the entire group of us, you're really gonna like displace this many of us from the show? And I was like screaming because it's so loud in there. I was like, not screaming in a mean way, but like screaming in
so they can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, in a confident way that like that's not acceptable because she led us because we're a fire hazard, she led us to the back of the room, the total back of the room, and we're like, no, we're not doing this. This isn't okay. We're going to move back, honestly. We're just going to move back. And she was like, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. Let me talk to my supervisor or whatever. And after like at least 5 minutes of going back and forth yelling, she comes back and she's like, okay, you can come over. And she led us back to the front of the stage. So me choosing to fight over that led to me and my friends being able to see the show. And if I hadn't done that, then we wouldn't have been able to see the show. And there's literally so many examples in your day-to-day life. You show up places and you're like, well, I have to fight about this. Do I want to fight about this? No. And I'll probably cry while I'm doing it because like I am a frustrated crier. And if you're not listening to me, I'll just cry. But I'm still gonna try. And the worst thing they can say is like, no, but they were going to say that either way.
You know what? If there's a fire on a cruise ship, we've got worse issues. Truly. Worse issues than a group of girls in a wheelchair trying to enjoy the show. I do agree with you that everybody needs to be a self-advocate.
Yes.
But I don't think everybody needs to be an advocate, right? Like, not every disabled person needs to like make their whole social media platform about advocating for the community.
No.
But yes, individually, the best thing you can do for yourself is learn to self-advocate. And that was something that was ingrained in me from the time I was a little girl. Like, I remember doing my orientation mobility lessons where I was learning how to use a white cane. So I've been fully night blind from birth.
Okay.
So I could see during the day, but at night, pitch black.
Okay.
And so I would take orientation mobility lessons so I could use a cane at night. And my O&M instructor would take me to the mall and she would be like, okay, go up to a stranger and ask them what time it is. I was like 8 years old. And she would just be like, you're going to need to learn how to do this. Like, you're going to need to go talk to strangers your whole life. You're going to need to ask for help from people your whole life. So you better start getting used to it and you better learn how to speak up for yourself and tell people what you need. Right. My parents, from the time I was diagnosed, told me my diagnosis, taught me how to pronounce my disease, taught me what the disease meant, how it impacted me compared to other people, and like what I could ask for. You know, like they made sure
That's good.
that it wasn't them just being like, our daughter's blind, she can't see at night, but that I could say, I'm blind, I can't see at night. They really, really empowered me. And I understand that it's a hard thing to learn, especially if you are a people pleaser or if you are more introverted.
Yeah.
It can be really hard to push back on somebody. I have to do it every freaking day with a service dog getting denied access.
And you have to choose your battles.
You do. That was a big lesson for me as well. My parents always taught me pick your battles because you will exhaust yourself fighting everybody. But there are some that are more important than others.
Absolutely.
And I do think, to your point, like if you don't advocate, you're the one who's being hurt by that.
Yes.
And if you can figure out how to push through the discomfort of asking for what you need in that moment, it's going to benefit you because you will get what you need long term and you will get to move on comfortably enjoying life. Or you can stay silent and hurt yourself long term because you miss out on that experience or opportunity. You have to make silly accommodations you wouldn't need to make if they could just make them for you.
Exactly.
But if people don't know, they can't help you. And people often don't just inherently know how to help a blind person or how to help a paralyzed person. So we do need to be the one to say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I need. This is how you do it.
Exactly.
Boom. And you know what? 9.9 times out of 10, people listen and they do it. They want to help.
Yes.
They just don't know how. And when you give them the tools, they're there to do that for you. It is very rare. It does happen, but it's very rare that people are actually assholes and they're straight up like, no.
Yeah, I think in a way, I mean, it brings more social connection when I think, okay, let me explain this. I have ADHD and I'm like, my thoughts are racing. Like, okay, in the US, we have an individualistic society. Everyone is so concerned with themselves and they're not worrying about making a connection with you anymore. Nobody cares. They have their AirPods in and they're like not really wanting to talk to you. And I think it leads to like more societal loneliness in that lack of connection. But other countries outside of the US that have more of a collectivist standpoint, they are worried and they like go up to you and they're like, how can I help you? Which I guess you can look at that as like an annoying thing. But personally, I'm like, okay, this person is like showing a genuine care and they want to support you. And when you also have to rely on other people for a little bit of help, it leads to some positive social connections and memories too that able-bodied people don't have. Because able-bodied people don't have to ask like, hey, my Uber driver on the way from the airport to my friend's house had a shoulder injury and he said he couldn't lift my wheelchair in the car. And I was like, not expecting that, obviously. And I was like, well, I can't lift my wheelchair into the trunk if I'm in the back seat already. I can't do that. So what did I do? I went to a guy that had his AirPods in that was sitting pretty close by. I didn't say anything to him previously to this. I mean, if someone has their AirPods in, they don't want to talk. And I was like, excuse me, sir. He didn't hear me at first. And then I say it again. I'm like, excuse me, sir, waving my hand. And he's like, yes. Took his AirPod out. And I was like, I'm just trying to get into this Uber. My Uber driver has a shoulder injury. Can you just help me load the stuff into the car? And he was like, yes, absolutely. Of course. And he came over and he did it. And he was so friendly and so nice. And it was perfect. And like, I almost feel like sometimes we are a little bit less lonely as disabled people because we are literally forced and dependent on some of these social experiences that able-bodied people just don't have to have.
I feel that way. I've always felt that way about like friendships and relationships. I'm one of those people who like, I don't do small talk. Like as this podcast might suggest, I go deep quick. Like that's just who I am. That's what she said. Anyways.
Oh my God.
I truly like am one of those people. Like I just don't find small talk satisfying.
Enjoyable.
I want to really connect with people. That is not something I'm putting on for this podcast. It is just who I am in life. My mom is the same way. It's just a part of me. And I think that I feel like my comfort with vulnerability is in large part because of my disability.
Yeah.
But that vulnerability that I'm comfortable with allows other people to feel comfortable being vulnerable. It gives them permission.
Oh, I agree.
And that permission I have given them allows us to be vulnerable together and connect deeper.
Yes.
And I think that's so beautiful. Like, even in my romantic relationships, like, something I personally, as an individual blind person, not all blind people struggle with this. I personally struggle with knowing when I'm on my period. So sometimes I will have to, like, wipe and show my
I've gotta say,
fiance.
being paralyzed and having reduced sensation has led to some very interesting period memories.
I'm certain, right? And so disability does just impact different parts of our lives. And so sometimes I'm like, hey, can you look at this? Am I bleeding?
Yeah.
That is not
Which
something a
is
sighted woman has to
atypical.
do.
Yeah.
It's atypical. But removing that, like, boundary of, like, I should be ashamed of bleeding. This is embarrassing.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, my partner and I are just so comfortable with, like, bathroom talk.
Yeah.
It's not a barrier for us. Like, and I'm so glad that I don't have a partner that I have to pretend I don't poop in front of. Like, I'm so glad I don't have to be like, girls don't poop, I'm dainty.
No.
Like, no.
No, you're so right about that. Like, okay, obviously, I think we relate to that stuff together, but for different reasons. But I totally understand where you're coming from with that. Like, if you objectively do something differently than the able-bodied person, like, okay, not only do I cath myself, but I also have to use the bathroom number 2 differently. And so I'm definitely more comfortable with being like, yeah, I have to go to the bathroom at this time, like every other day, and it's always the same, and that's the routine. And people, I mean, I think people are pretty receptive to that as well. I mean, I think if you're open about something, then there's just not going to be like shame and embarrassment. If you're just confident and you're just like, yeah, this is how I do it, people are okay with that.
Shame and embarrassment are such, like, social constructs. And I always say, we teach people how to treat us.
Yeah.
If I make my disability a negative thing, right? So if I'm talking to somebody and I'm telling them I'm blind for the first time and I make it a big deal and I
Yes.
act like it's a negative, scary thing, that is how they will receive it and therefore perceive it.
Yeah.
And that is how they will go about treating my disability. The reverse of that is if I own my disability with pride and confidence, I don't act like it's a big deal, I'm nonchalant, it's just a part of who I am, and I own it, I make it comfortable for everybody else to view it that way too.
Absolutely.
And that's why representation matters. And that's why we need so many different disabled voices on social media sharing their stories.
Right.
And no longer allowing mainstream media to butcher them for us.
Oh my gosh.
And I so appreciate that you're so candid on your social media with your story and that you've been so open in having this conversation today. We've touched on so many topics and you've been such a trooper. And I do always like to ask an awkward question.
Okay.
And I feel like you've been so down for, like, just down to clown in this conversation.
I want to be genuine, yeah.
Then I'm like, I think you might be the one who's up for this awkward question.
Okay.
And if you're not, we'll move along swiftly.
Okay. Hit me with it.
But
you're giving a lot of lead up right now.
I'm prepping you, okay?
For real. Oh my god.
Now,
what is this?
I follow a lot of disabled creators, a lot of paralyzed creators. I have a lot of paralyzed friends. And what we hear a lot when it comes to the bathroom is the term bowel routine.
Bowel program.
And nobody likes to elaborate further.
Oh, yeah.
Will you elaborate on what does a bowel routine or a bowel program mean?
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier, like, the routine, like, well, it's called Bowel program, but it is a literal routine. And for most people, it happens at the same time, like, at the same frequency. Like, if you're doing it every day, I don't. I do it every other day. But I have made videos about this short form video. Well, actually, I've made long form as well years ago about my bowel program because for many reasons, I think, like we were saying earlier with like shame and embarrassment, I mean, it adds to it if you're like trying to keep it a secret when it's like, it doesn't have to be so secretive. And I think people need to hear it, especially the newly disabled person that does have the feeling like, oh, this needs to be kept secret. But, like, when you get around your, like, disabled friends that are also paralyzed and they understand it, we all have a bowel program. It isn't embarrassing because we all just know. And we're like, oh, what time are you doing yours? Okay, there's only one bathroom, so I'll make sure I do. We're on the same schedule. This is perfect. Or it's like my friend will just be like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't come out of the bathroom right now. I already put the water up my butt. He literally said that over text message. He's like, oh, I'm not coming out of here. Give me like 45 minutes or something. It's like, okay, when people can be open about it, it helps everyone, I think. So I have made videos about it. And for most paralyzed people that do a bowel program, they have to do it at the same time. And typically you started like the doctors start you on this as soon as you are basically well enough. It's just better for your body. But typically they call it digstim or manual evac. Literally, if you don't have the motor control to use the bathroom, then you gotta get creative. So unfortunately for me, that method never worked. I don't even know how graphic I can be here, but
You be as graphic as you want to be.
okay. No, so digstim or manual evac is the standard for people, but literally it's like a manual, I don't want to say disimpaction. You literally use a finger and you just like stimulate.
Right,
Basically.
so you put on a glove.
Obviously.
Just confirming.
Obviously.
And then you just...
Basically, yeah. And then it, like, your body is like, oh, we're supposed to be doing this now. And it's kind of like poking the bear, like, in a sense. But for me, it didn't work. So I use a different system or method. It's called the Paralyzed. And there's a couple different products now. I think when I first got on it, or on the method, there was only one, and it's called the Paralyzed. But now there's a couple brands out there that do it. It's essentially the same thing. Essentially, it's just like a enema, but it's like specialized for people that have neurogenic bowel. So people with spinal cord injury, people with spina bifida, and I guess maybe some other things. But yeah, I do it every other night, and it takes like 45 minutes, which is the most irritating thing, which is also why I'm like, I'm not doing that every day.
You know what? Man poop. Like,
I'm not doing that.
I feel like all men take 45-minute poops.
Right.
So, and they're not disabled.
My dad does.
They're not disabled, and they somehow manage to take forever.
Yeah.
So don't be feeling bad. It's not just you. It's all the men in the world.
Yeah. But I think there's a lot of shame, I think, within the spinal cord injury community, especially for newly injured people, about bathroom in general, like having to cath yourself and having this like atypical way that you go number 2, and people don't want to talk about it. And initially too, like if your body isn't used to it yet, then you're not going to be as successful as you are. I'm like 5.5 years post injury now. So now I'm like, oh, it's like literally not a worry at all. But initially, yeah, it's normal. I remember my friend came to visit me in the hospital. This was like 10 days after being paralyzed. And I was like, I'm sorry, girl. They pumped me full of laxatives. I'm going to be pooping myself in here today. Don't mind the smell. I just don't care. And like, that's okay. Like, just own it. Because like, initially, your body's going to do that. Like, you're literally being pumped intentionally full of laxatives to like get you started on this like new light.
But it's not just paralyzed people who feel this shame. Like, there's so much just shame around bathroom stuff.
Oh yeah.
Period in society. And like, I'm very much in the camp of everybody poops.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's not a big deal.
I said that in the video.
Yeah.
One of my videos
poops.
was like, girls poop. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Even paralyzed ones.
Don't want to break the illusion.
Yeah.
But everybody poops. And like, there shouldn't be shame. So thank you for being willing to like go further than just a vague allusion to it.
I got so many comments on the video that I actually I showed what it looks like and like how it works. Obviously not literally, but I showed, like, how it would work, and so many people were like, they messaged or commented and was like, "Thank you so much for, like, making this video because I just feel so much more confident, knowing that, like, there's someone else that looks like me that is talking about this and they do it the same way that I do." Or from, like, parents, that have disabled children and they're like, "I'm gonna show my child this video because they also don't poop the same way as everyone else." And if you're over here, like, talking about it, like, openly, and I think that's gonna make my child more comfortable.
One thing I've learned in 12 years of sharing my life on the internet is oftentimes the hardest videos to make, the
And
ones that are
most
most
important.
vulnerable, are the most important and are the ones that really make the most change. And that's, in many ways why I started this podcast, to cut past these like surface level conversations and get to the stuff that really matters and that really connects us. So thank you so much for being here and being on the show. We started this conversation by asking, who are you? And
Oh,
I want to
yeah.
end it by asking, what is it really like to be you?
Oh my gosh. I think, I'm definitely more down to earth than it appears on social media, and I don't think people probably understand that. I could be a very, like, low-key, casual person, but, like, I don't know, I think my life is still in the development stage, and I'm proud of that. Like, my life is changing, every year, I think, but especially this year, I've, like, really felt that about myself. I don't know what it's like to be me. I don't know. I'm just me. I
Well,
can't even answer this question.
it's a tough one, and you've answered so many of my questions already. So, um, I appreciate you for being who you are because I think you're exactly who you were meant to be. And
I think we should all lean into, like, our uniqueness and not try to, like, fall in line. I definitely struggle with that.
being
Like,
the same as everybody else is so boring.
it is so boring and it's exhausting. Like, socially. I mean, I just literally can't do that. So, I appreciate the fidgets
Yes,
that you have.
I've been having my fidgets. So this is the first episode where I was like, we like started adding the fidgets because I'm a big fidgeter,
Yes.
and nobody's used them.
Oh
And
my
this is the first
God.
time that I was like, can you please use the fidgets? I don't know if you have
You
been.
don't? Oh my God, the entire time.
Okay, great. Because I've also been, and I've been self-conscious. I'm like, I hope the viewers don't think I'm weird playing with my fidgets. This pink bunny is Sabrina, covered in Elton's dog hair. I need to clean her. And this is Mellow, who's a yellow gummy bear.
I think we should all be more weird, and I think we should be open to being weird, and maybe a little bit, just leaning into our diversity. Like, whether it's physically with your disability, neurodiversity, or both.
And where can people keep up with you online for your weirdness and your life evolution that's to come?
Yes. I'm on everything, essentially. I'm on YouTube as Tara.
Such a good name. Honestly, when I saw that, I was like 10 out of 10 branding.
Oh my
Again,
gosh.
one of those things where you're like, was this meant to be all along from the start?
I fear. So yeah, I'm on YouTube as Tara, but on Instagram and TikTok, it's Tara underscore Shettt. My last name is Shetterly. So many people have made jokes like about the shet part. They're like, "Oh, this is a bad word." I'm sorry, guys. I think my last name is a little bit too long. So, and it used to be my personal account.
Well, thank
Okay.
God you're not pronouncing it Tara, because then you'd be Paratara, which really doesn't have the flow to it.
You know what? I've never thought that someone could be reading that and not getting the full effect.
My screen reader read it as
crap.
Paratara, and I was like, I'm going to say
No.
Paratera because I feel like that's,
Clearly, it was intentional.
yeah, that's the vibe. So everybody, go give her a follow. I will have all the links in the show notes in the description box, so check her out. Thank you so much for being here, and until next time, now you know what it's really like.